The story that I will tell you is after he had a gunshot wound to his head,
Right.
he skipped that fall junior year for football, but he was on the basketball team that fall. And people were concerned because he had a little
Scar.
horseshoe wound scar on his head.
Folks, you can see this scar.
You can see
Clear.
it. We're practicing basketball. He goes up for a rebound, one-handed snatch, and taps his head to the side on the bottom of the backboard, comes down. Then, like, this is middle of play, taps his head with his hand and says, "See, coach, I'm okay."
You heard that there. That is Bill Krueper of the Settled on the Field podcast, talking about one of the best local South Bend and Mishawaka area athletes that he's seen. More of that later, but first, thank you for listening to another episode of Round the Bend Now and Then. My name is Matt Emery, and I'm a local history nerd. My main mission in this podcast, as well as other Round the Bend material, is to create engaging content that shares how intertwined the South Bend and Mishawaka area's past is to our present. In the podcast, I interview local leaders, business owners, and community members to help tell their stories, because their stories help tell the story of South Bend and Mishawaka. Before we get into the interview, I just have a few announcements and favors. Announcement: all of our previous audio episodes are now uploaded to YouTube, and as each one is released, they'll also be available on YouTube as well. In addition to the audio episodes, I'll continue to create visual content as well. I currently have 3 different video episodes, each with historical pictures, maps, dynamic narration by yours truly, and even on-the-scene videos and reporting, also by yours truly. Be sure to go to our YouTube channel, @RoundTheBend Now and Then, subscribe, and check out the content. A few favors: as always, please be sure to hit the download, like, or subscribe button on whatever podcast app that you listen to us on. Follow us on social media, @RoundTheBendPod, or @RoundTheBend574 on Twitter, Round the Bend Now and Then on Facebook, and all of our links are in the show notes as well. My last favor is to please pass on the good word about the content. Now, here is the introduction setting up another interview that helps tell the story of South Bend and Mishawaka. As you know, in this podcast and other Round the Bend content, I strive to share some engaging stories from the South Bend and Mishawaka areas past. On the podcast, I accomplish this through interviews with a variety of different folks. We're over 30 episodes in, and we've had episodes about the building of the East Race, the bombing at Palais Royale, the execution-style murder of the original Corby's Tavern owner, just to name a few. But I also strive to sprinkle in some content that shines a light on some great things currently going on in our community. Businesses, organizations, people, and so forth. We've had episodes highlighting the Ronald McDonald House and the Golick Family Foundation, for example. But then a few months ago, I received a message from a few fellow John Adams High School grads explaining that they had planned to launch a sports-related podcast. I instantly knew that I wanted to have them on the show to help spread the good word. So in this episode, I meet with the hosts of the podcast Settled on the Field. Bill, Liz, and Jeb are all South Bend products who all graduated from Adams High School. And as you'll hear in the episode, they're all sports nuts who decided to formalize their sports fandom by establishing a podcast. Within the podcast, listeners will learn about a variety of relevant sports-related topics. For example, they've interviewed referees, coaches, current athletes, former athletes, just to name a few. But this isn't just a simple interview podcast. Each episode has a different sports-related area of focus where listeners can learn something new. I definitely encourage you to check out the Settled on the Field podcast. It's real easy to find on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, or just click on the link in the show notes. Yours truly has even appeared as a guest on their podcast and had an absolute blast doing it. Lastly, you'll hear us talk about something they started called Vets to Refs. I highly encourage that you support this initiative, and to learn more, listen to the episode or click on the link in the show notes. Here is my interview with the Settled on the Field podcast. Thank you for joining Round the Bend Now and Then podcast. Truly appreciate it. And the reason that basically the main outcome, the main purpose of this episode is to shine a light on your podcast, Settled on the Field. Part of my podcast is to shine a light on South Bend's history and Mishawaka's history, but also just to lift up all things South Bend and Mishawaka. And so as soon as I saw we had another South Bend Roots podcast, since you guys are from South Bend, I wanted to kind of shine a light on it. Also, I've known you guys for 25 years plus years because we're all John Adams Eagles. So we want to give shout outs to all the Eagles as well. So anyways, really quick, Liz, introduce yourself, a little brief introduction, where you live now and all that good stuff.
Well, hello. I am a 1999 John Adams graduate. Very proud Eagle here.
Woo.
Sadly, I kind of think I don't know the John Adams fight song as well as I know the Tarkington Tigers fight song.
Scarlet and blue, come on.
But here I am. I live in Indianapolis. Been living here for, I don't even know, 15 years.
Wow.
I think. About that long. And work from home and started this podcast with my brother and Jeb. And we're having a great time.
Awesome. Hey, Jeb, introduce yourself a little bit.
All right. Well, thanks, Matt. Jeb McNally here, 95 John Adams Eagles. Woo. And so, yeah, Bill and Liz and I started Settle on the Field. Little excitement between some friends, talking sports and just breaking things down. And we also brought into the mix vets to refs. So I officiated high school sports a little bit, college baseball just a little bit for over 17 years, football and hockey, and basketball slightly. So brought the officiating angle to things with Settled on the Field, and we're just having a lot of fun with it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Hey, Bill
Krueper fell off the map when I went to the Navy, but look, I'm a 95 Adams graduate.
Woo!
Tarkington, Liz, Edison, Adams. Graduated from Ball State, went to the Navy. Now we got a podcast called Settled on the Field. We talk a lot about, different things sports related. We're happy to come to you. We've had about 20 plus episodes. We've got
That's
motivation
awesome.
in there. We've got recruiting tips. We've got the rule of the day. It's just it's been fun doing it with Liz and Jeb, and we're happy to be on your show.
That's great. That's great. Well, hey, what are the origins of the podcast? We kind of touched on it a little bit. Obviously, you've known each other for a while. Liz and Billy have known each other for quite a while. So just what are the origins?
So basically, it kind of, Bill and I are constantly texting each other about anything that comes to sports. And Bill and Jeb and all their buddies are texting each other about sports. So for me, kind of my son is going on to play football in college. So my life has been surrounded by football. A lot of recruiting, a lot of visiting schools, a lot of going to 7-on-7 camps, just really ensconced.
Right.
And so I've learned a lot. And so I wanted to pass on some of the information that I've learned. And also, we just want to get it out because, we have opinions.
Right.
We have strong opinions.
Absolutely.
That's kind of how it started.
We also felt like, youth sports really needs to be talked about, and we need to rein in the parents and teach them, it's about the kids and to settle down. So we do a little rule of the day to kind of helpfully teach them the rules, because most parents are yelling about rules they don't even know. So we're trying to help, settle down the parents at youth sporting events and just bring out the beauty of the game instead of the ugliness.
Maybe we should rename it Settle Down on the Field.
or that could be an episode or a segment in an episode. Settle Down on the Field, to where then you're looking for examples across the state or the country of parents who wild out, and then you could even use them as a non-example. And then Jeb, you have plenty of examples from being a referee, from being involved in the games, you guys as parents. I mean, so that's a great segment right there. There you go.
Go. Write it down.
Hey, what so far anybody can answer. What have been just some positives so far? What's been neat? What's been awesome about doing the podcast?
And I'll jump on this one. I mean, I think that several of our guests are either close friends or people that we know, either from very close friends to people maybe you just know via a LinkedIn connection or something like that. But getting their different views on things, I felt has been pretty special. We've learned and been able to share a lot of different viewpoints like that.
Right.
That, and plus the time that we put into it, like it's a lot of work, but it comes out with a special product. So I think it's those two things.
And the willingness. People are willing to come on your podcast.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow, it's pretty wild. Yeah.
And not everybody can just jump on and get interviewed too, so like kudos to those people who just say yes. I mean, and kudos like me, but think about when you're trying to ask people who have never even seen an episode, like that's the hardest.
Right.
Like, hey, so these people, like when you first start, like you're selling them on just a vision of what a show could be, right? So it's awesome. You guys are that many episodes in. That is so cool. What have been some any surprises or anything you didn't expect?
I did not expect it to take as much time.
Woo! Yes, ma'am.
It's at least in the beginning. I mean, we've learned a lot. We've learned so much about reaching out, editing, what to say, what not to say, how to sit back and let other people talk. That was a learning curve a little bit. And all of those things. But in the beginning, it takes a lot of time.
Oh Lord, it's like a part-time, full-time job,
It's also kind of like getting a tattoo. You want to do another one. You want to do another one.
It's addictive.
You're like, then you get better and you're like, man, what if we have video? Hey, what if we add some music? Like we could be better. We're doing this. Like
that's cool.
It's been neat learning from our guests. It's been neat to learn from our guests, the different, ideas. We've had a Super Bowl ref on us and he talked about when he was in the Ohio State Michigan game. He was freaking out. It was his first one ever as an official. And the guy next to him said, there's 7.5 billion people in this world that don't care what happened in this game.
Yes.
Think about that.
They don't even know what's happened.
Perspective.
That perspective.
So, but there's also 10 million who do. So
I used that at work at one of our big meetings too.
See? And that's another thing. And meeting with the varied people. If you didn't have the podcast, you would never meet with these people. You would never have all those new strategies and tools in your own tool belt, let alone your listeners and your followers. So that's awesome. We talked about how long it takes and everything. What would be some of the biggest challenges so far that you think in doing the podcast?
I would say like doing the research on our different guests so that, we sound like we know what we're talking about, because we have had some people that we've never met before. And so we had to dig into what they've accomplished and
or topics that karate is not exactly my forte. I'm not a black belt. So having to at least sound knowledgeable with the questions.
Right.
So, ask an idiotic question.
Keeping different topics that are aligned to, the audience and what we want to talk about, but then keep them different, but kind of, the similar.
Yeah. Steering it all in the way you want it to go. And you mentioned, Jeb, people that you don't know. That's hard because you may not even have a connection or a flow with them, right? And so that's hard off the bat. But one thing that I've noticed in doing my podcast, and you probably have as well, is most of the people who are joining you are somewhat, successful in their fields. They're leaders in their fields, and you don't get to be leaders and in your fields without being articulate, without being able to express yourself. And so we're not driving up and down Michigan Street interviewing Joe Schmo, right?
This is true.
So
I will add another comment.
Yeah.
Hey, that applies to Michigan Street down here in Indy too.
People who maybe are long-winded.
That's hard.
Sort
That's
of like
hard.
reining them in. That can be difficult.
That's extremely hard. Yes.
That's hard.
I just had 2 in a row, but I made them sound really good. Really good. Well, Jeb, you mentioned Vets to Refs a little bit ago. Billy or Jeb, one of you want to talk about that? I know it holds a very special place in your heart and definitely positively impacting.
Yeah, so Vets to Refs in Indiana 501c3.
Legit.
We started it. Billy was in the Navy for 20 years. And, when we're out on the field enjoying ourselves, and he was out serving our country.
Right.
So we're real blessed to have him back home. And so basically, when Bill got out of the Navy, and he could probably articulate this better than I can, but I'll do it for him. He did an internship at the IHSAA, and he thought up this idea, Vets to Refs. We, basically taking veterans and paying for them to becoming high school sports officials. So we took it one step further, and we added first responders. Okay. So any first responder or veteran will help get them started on their way to joining in the officiating ranks.
That's awesome. And I'll be definitely sure to have you guys' links and everything in the show notes, but also the Vets to Ref and all that good stuff. So our listeners can just click on the show notes right now and head there. Billy, you want to add something?
Yeah, I was just going to add, this group, this three-person team, we put together a load of partners already that are looking to work with us. Like
That's
tomorrow,
awesome.
I've got a call with Ref Reps, who is the education wing. We can get them to be our partner and spread the love that way. That way people can get right on and take some courses, and then also run in Ref.
Okay.
And that guy is going to lead us down the path of proper physical education and physical training for referees. But, as far as the veterans and the first responders, if you're out there listening, it's a good idea to stay involved with sports, get involved with your community, help you with that renewed purpose for the day. We're excited to see it grow.
Keep you in shape, a little extra spending cash. There's so many.
Try being a rep instead of yelling at them,
That's true. That is so awesome, man. The mission behind that's great. And I'll do all I can to share, tweet, retweet, and all that good stuff. So that's awesome. That's fabulous. Seriously. Next, a brief word from one of our sponsors, a sponsor that most of our fellow local history buffs would love. I want to thank Augie's Locker Room for helping to support the podcast. If you've never heard of Augies, let me tell you, Augie's Locker Room is a Notre Dame sports memorabilia and gift shop. And folks, the words memorabilia and gift shop really don't sum up the place. You walk into Augie's and it is literally a Notre Dame sports museum. From leather helmets to autographed footballs, championship rings, game-worn cleats and gear, and even my favorite football player ever, Joe Montana's jersey. Augie's Locker Room recently moved and is located about a mile from Notre Dame's campus at 1733 North Ironwood Drive in South Bend, Indiana. That's right near the corner of State Road 23 and Ironwood. I highly recommend that you stop by Augie's. If you have a loved one in your life that's a Notre Dame fan, stop by and find that perfect original gift for them. If you are a Notre Dame fan, stop by Augie's and buy that perfect gift for yourself because you deserve it. And at the same time that you're shopping and looking at all the historic memorabilia, you might learn something you didn't know about Notre Dame sports history from Jim, the owner. He's a great dude, very knowledgeable, and most importantly, passionate about Notre Dame and the South Bend and Mishawaka area. Again, folks, check out Augie's Locker Room at 1733 North Ironwood Drive. Any place that has a phone number of 574-277-NDND, you gotta check it out. Or stop by their website, augieslockerroom.com. I also put a link of the website in the show notes, or you can find them on Facebook, Augie's Locker Room. Now, back to the episode. Other than the Vets to Ref upcoming, anything else coming up in the near future for the Settled on the Field podcast?
Yeah, so we in the past we've done a little segment on the Olympics. So we have Paris Olympics coming probably about 75 days away now.
All right.
And so we did a little update at the beginning of our podcast on the new sports. So breakdancing.
I'm excited about breakdancing.
Cannot wait.
And, so there's 5 new sports and then all the existing sports. So we're going to kind of mold our episodes going here forward with some more facts about the Olympics and kind of breaking things down. So when you actually turn the Olympics on, you'll have a little background on a few different ideas.
Yeah.
Athletes.
That's awesome.
And
That's
you
great.
might even see Jeb do the long jump.
Oh.
For perspective.
Okay. Is this true?
Yep. Yeah, Emery, we might have to get you out there running the 400.
I'm down. We'll do it. I just ran the Girls on the Run Saturday, right through our neighborhood, Jeb. Oh,
real quick.
There you go, 5K.
Real quick, Jeb ran a 400. He made it around. I ran a 40 and pulled my hammy. Liz, I think, has done both, the 40, the 100, maybe a 400. But she mentioned long jump, but we got to give a shout out to Isaiah Needham, the sectional long jump champion. We're going to check him out here at regionals soon.
All right. There you go. It's Liz's kiddo.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I did a 40-meter dash, no, it ain't happening. I would pull a hammy. All right. Well, as my listeners know, I love South Bend, Mishawaka area history. I love South Bend, Mishawaka, anything South Bend and Mishawaka area, and not just Studebaker and Oliver. I appreciate all things that are kind of all things that help tell our story, that kind of lead up to where we're at now. And the main thing about your podcast, the main focus is on sports. Well, South Bend does have a pretty rich sports history over the years. It's a lot of some of our high schools have been around since the 1920s and 30s, and so it does have a rich history. However, my 3 guests here, Jeb, Bill, and Liz, also have loved sports their whole lives and have been to different sporting events and have been a part of different sporting events. And we're getting so old that we can say, I was at a sporting event 20 years ago where I saw this kid play or this kid play. And so I'm thinking, why not? Let's just ask a few questions about your experiences here. So, hey, whoever wants to answer this one first, who's the best South Bend or Mishawaka area athlete that you have personally either played against, with, or seen?
Jeb, go ahead, because I could talk for like 20 minutes.
All right. So that I've played against, that's a tough one. I'm going to have to say probably Matt Wood. He was a left-handed hitter out of Washington back in 94, 95 range. He dropped bombs. He was a great player.
Okay.
So that I played against would be Matt Wood. But out of the South Bend area, we've had tons of them. Kevin Powers was a all-state quarterback at Riley back in the day. But I would have to go with the offensive lineman from your John Adams Eagles, Indianapolis Colts veteran Danny Pinner.
Oh, yes.
Nice.
I'm currently sitting at my mom's house in the Sunnymead neighborhood where Danny Pinner grew up, and he used to mow my mom's lawn back in the day. He's the only one to ever mow my lawn after my second child. He came over and mowed my lawn. And he got drafted by the Colts, scored a touchdown, and he's a former Ball State Cardinal like Billy is.
He should have scored against Notre Dame, but something went wrong with the play. I was there. He ended up at the 1.
Yep.
But that's
I'm going to go Danny Pinner.
That's spot on, man. And those of you who don't know Danny Pinner, he has worked his tail off. It wasn't like he was in 8th, 9th grade having these Alabama coming to Adams. I mean, like, he worked his tail off through high school, through Ball State, and got drafted at the Colts, man. It's so cool. Sunnymead product. Sunnymead.
Yep.
Sunnymead. All right, I'm jumping in with
go.
the no-brainer of the day, and that's Delshawn Pickett.
Yep. Talk to me about Delshawn. What years are we talking? What years are we talking ish?
92,
Yep.
93, 94.
Yep.
We had a little gap in there due to an incident.
Mm-hmm.
But my man on the football field was being recruited by every single school, Florida, IU, Notre Dame, everyone. Ended up going to IU. Let's see. The story that I will tell you is after he had a gunshot wound to his head.
Right.
He skipped that fall junior year for football, but he was on the basketball team that fall. And people were concerned because he had a little
scar
on his head.
Folks, you could see this scar. Clear.
We're practicing basketball. He goes up for a rebound, one-handed snatch, and taps his head to the side on the bottom of the backboard, comes down. Then, like, this is middle of play, taps his head with his hand and says, "See, coach, I'm okay."
So that's the way he had to prove he was okay.
Exactly. That's athletic ability and the knowledge of people who were concerned about him. And he's like, "Don't worry about me. I've got this."
Wow. I remember, before you keep going, Billy, my freshman year was Delshawn's junior year. And you know, when you're coming in as a freshman, you're automatically very intimidated. And this dude would walk down the hallways and he would stand out like a sore thumb just because of, I mean, not only was he tall and big, but he just had a presence about him.
6'3", 245 with the huge, like just
wide,
strong barrel chest, the biggest, strongest dude you've seen.
But one of the nicest dudes.
Of course.
One of the nicest dudes.
Here's a story to summarize his athletic ability and how nice he is.
Yep.
I went to Pearly with him from kindergarten through second.
Okay.
Didn't see him again until he's in 8th grade and I'm in 7th grade.
Right. It's a lot of time.
Walking into the building there at Edison, and my buddy Greg McMillan's like, "Oh, you think you're playing football? Delshawn Pickett's going to start running back, and so is Gibson Luga." And I'm like, "Okay, let's see," because Delshawn was 8th grade.
Right.
But at lunch, Delshawn is out there dunking on people, doing the kiss the rim, dunking on people. And I see him, and he's like, he looks at me, gives me the look, and he goes, "You know, it's Lewis, right?" And I go, "Yeah." Because you know how I know that? He said Delshawn, Eric, and Lewis, his best buddies from Pearly, Eric Sager.
That's crazy. He remembered that.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. That's cool. Definitely.
Shout out to Sean.
Dude, Delshawn Pickett he was something else.
Beast mode.
Hey, we also got to mention Anthony Johnson.
Let's talk about Anthony Johnson a bit. Jeb, what do you know about Anthony Johnson?
Well, so I'll just foreshadow a future question. Not only was he dominant at football, he played soccer. Yep. You know, he went to Notre Dame as a football player, ended up in the pros, played for the Colts as well. So he, I remember back in the day watching my brothers play against him in grade school football when he was at Stanley Clark and just dominated.
Oh, he went to Stanley Clark?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Did he go straight from Stanley Clark to JA? Wow. Yep. Okay. Yep. Long time in the pros too.
Yep.
Turn the tide on you guys a little bit here. You guys always ask if there's what's the most hype or notable sporting event that you've ever been to. I'll turn it on you, but we'll keep it local. Are there any local sporting events here in the South Bend, Mishawaka area that just stand out in your head?
For me, it's the holiday tournament that they used to host at the Joyce ACC Notre Dame basketball arena, and I was there in the presence of Sean Kemp.
Oh,
so obviously you could list him in that previous
Concord,
version.
Right?
Yeah, I don't think there's a better high school athlete than him in the history of the world, but I knew this question was coming, so I'm saving it for this.
Yeah,
but that event was awesome because you would have like every one of the 5 South Bend schools play, plus maybe 3 others from invited there.
Right.
And I was lucky enough to be on the court in warm-ups a couple times and lucky enough to see Sean Kemp play, Delshawn Pickett get dunks. Like that was pretty awesome to me.
I could do an episode on that holiday tournament. I mean, because the downfall of it were the fights. Notre Dame that I recall, and I recall it was like
100%. There was too many fights back in the early mid-90s. To include at the LaSalle John Adams football game.
Jeb, any events stand out in your head?
So I would say 1985, Adams St. Joe soccer game at School Field. So this is back when soccer was still a club sport.
Wow. In the mid 80s, it was a club sport?
Yep.
Wow.
So they played at School Field back when School Field had both sides of the bleachers, I believe, were both stone at the time.
Yep.
And it was packed. Okay. I mean, I want to say the one side that you normally sit on was just pretty much full. And the game went like 6 overtimes. So they didn't go to shootouts back then.
Okay.
Ooh. And I remember they would just blow the whistle for the end of the overtime, and everybody on the field would just collapse to the ground and just lay there until they started the next half.
That's crazy. Wow. And you would have been about, what, 8 years old or so?
Yeah, so I would have been, 9.
Wow.
And I remember, like, Dave Friend from St. Joe, Dave Meadow from St. Joe. There was just all sorts of people. Matt Jones was the goalie for Adams. And it was just ridiculous, man.
That's wild.
So if they could do anything right in soccer, they'd go back to no more penalty kicks.
What do you mean, right now?
Oh, you don't like the penalty kick.
Yeah, this was back in the day. They didn't go to penalty kicks after so many overtimes.
Parents want to get home.
They would just play till somebody scored.
They just waited till someone scored.
Yeah, parents want to get home though. Damn it!
I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say that's the worst idea I've ever heard. And watching soccer 1-0 for 90 minutes is bad enough. I got to watch another 180 minutes for people dying, going half speed. No way.
I believe I heard Bill say the penalty kick is one of the best events in sport.
Shootout. Start with the shootout. Start with the shootout, and then Adams is in the lead, and then go to the game. That's a way better solution.
It was the mid 80s.
Well, I don't know about that. But I don't. First of all, I don't even know how you guys have this memory. My memory is not that good. So I'm gonna go to when Notre Dame played Ball State, because I can remember that far back.
There I
approximately
was.
2014. I don't even know. That was a great 20 what?
18.
2018. Okay.
Did Ball State win?
They almost won.
That's right.
They did not win.
That's right.
But they were so close to winning, and we were hyped.
And now, a brief word from one of our sponsors. I want to thank Rugco for sponsoring this episode. If you've never heard of Rugco, let me tell you. Indiana Rug Company started in 1985 right here in the South Bend and Mishawaka area, specializing in custom handmade area rugs. And almost 30 years later, they're still going strong. They're still creating beautiful, one-of-a-kind area rugs and offering other carpet binding services. But they've grown into so much more. They opened a brick-and-mortar retail store, Rugco Studio and Gift Shop, located at 220 East Mishawaka Avenue in Mishawaka, right across from the entrance to Central Park. Rugco itself is located in a cool, old, historic Mishawaka storefront, but what's inside is even better. I can pretty much tell you that any fan of this podcast and other Round the Bend content would be a fan of Rugco, as the first thing that caught my attention as soon as I walked inside was the selection of locally themed merchandise. I mean, where else are you going to find Scottsdale Mall or USA Skate Center merch or a t-shirt that says Michiana versus everybody? Nowhere. The whole front of the store contains locally themed t-shirts, coffee mugs, magnets, stickers, and much more. Now that's the area that you had to drag me out of. Then there are other areas in the store that I literally had to drag my wife out of. It seemed like she had a gift picked out for everybody. For our moms, our sisters, and our nieces, she found some really cool purses, aprons, jewelry, artwork, and other neat decorations. For our sons and nephews, she found some stylish outdoor gear and clothes. And once I dragged her out of that area, I discovered that they have a really cool outside patio area where you can buy one-of-a-kind yard decorations, wind chimes, patio art, and more. Then, when you're tired from all the shopping and need something sweet to eat, Look no further than Lola's Pastry, Bread, and Jam Bakery, located right inside of In Rugco. All of their sweet treats are baked from 100% scratch using no preservatives. To truly get a sense of all that In Rugco has to offer, you have to visit their store. Again, at 220 East Mishawaka Avenue, across from the Central Park entrance. Once you're there, you'll understand why I'm describing this place so enthusiastically and why I'm so excited that I get to advertise for them, as they are a locally owned small family business who is entrenched in our community and dedicated to seeing it thrive. I think their own description of In Rugco says it all. If you are tired of big box retail stores without personality and artistic flair, our studio offers a true shopping experience with genuine customer engagement and service. And folks, go to their website, indianarugco.com, to check out all that they have to offer. I included a link in the show notes as well. And now, back to the episode. All right, well, obviously a lot of the topics we talk about on my podcast are about histories and notable figures from South Bend and Mishawaka areas past. And I have asked several guests, when I remember, I tend to forget too, but I remembered here. Are there any notable figures from the South Bend and Mishawaka areas past that you'd want to chill out and hang out with for a day?
I would say with the growth of women's basketball,
okay,
I would like to hang out with Skylar Diggins.
Oh.
And I'd like to get her take on how it's going for her and the growth that she's seen since she's made it to the WNBA.
That's awesome. That's cool. And I just heard her name. I was watching the Indiana Fever game here a little bit ago.
Go ahead, Jeb.
Okay, so I would say John Wooden.
Okay.
Oh.
Fantastic
answer.
Yeah, I mean, like, I played under Lenny Butchkowski, who went to South Bend Central. And I think a lot of the people in our community, that went to South Bend Central and had the chance to play, around that era with John Wooden, really shaped our city and our culture and our athletic programs. Right. I mean, I don't know all the people that did it, but if we did a story on that, Matt, there you go. Looking back on who played for him and what they brought to our community, I would assume that Tree, and it's just unimaginable of all the people that he's affected. And, what he did at UCLA will never be matched.
Nope.
But, for our community, we don't realize how blessed we were and all the people that grew from him.
Yeah, that's a great point too. And then just his tree, underneath that. Wow. Bill.
That's a solid answer. I can't really compete with that.
That's pretty much a perfect answer.
I thought you guys were going to steal it from me.
That's why I wanted you to go first. But I mean, I would get a trio from the John Adams tree itself and go with Mr. Tolchinsky, Dave Hadaway, and Bill Farrell. Sit around, have a cold one, tell some old stories. Have them unsettled on the field.
That would be a good episode.
That would be
I think you could have Jeff Hall jump in there too. He would be a good fourth guy on that one.
Oh man, goodness gracious!
If the Halls could talk right there.
R.I.P. to those dudes, man. R.I.P. Right. All right. Well, hey, that was great. And again, I will have the link to your podcast in my show notes. I'll be sure to share it on social media. Folks, remember Vets to Refs, and give these three a listen. They're South Bend roots and definitely deserving of your time. So thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Keep dominating.
Right. It was fun.
We'll try.
Matt, you're killing it, buddy. Thanks for everything.
We try. Thanks, guys. Thank you once again for listening to another episode of Round the Bend Now and Then. An extra special thanks to the Settled on the Field podcast, Liz, Jeb, and Bill for joining the show. Folks, again, check out their podcast on the popular podcast apps or just click on the link in the show notes. Thank you again for listening, and join us again next time to hear more about South Bend and Mishawaka's Now and Then.